always been a writer. I think, like, from my earliest memories are creating story. So I can't remember when I started. Maybe I started before I even existed, which is a very existential question, isn't it? But yeah, I guess professionally, I went to university to study English literature and wanted to create stories. So that's how I got started in it professionally. And I started writing plays first. So theatre is my first love, and got romanced into writing fiction along the way. But yeah, that's my story, I guess.
In some ways, my story is kind of the opposite of Fitty's, in that I was always a reader, and I always had an idea in my head that I wanted to write, but the whole idea of writing felt kind of shameful in some ways. And I think had I had an undergraduate program that I could have done, that would have changed everything. So I sort of only overcame the embarrassment of it quite late in life, which I really regret. And I think that the students are so lucky now that they have this, gateway in from undergraduate stage. So I started writing fairly late in life, and then kind of shifted careers away from teaching law into teaching creative writing.
I know exactly when I started writing. It was in geometry class. I was 15, and I hated the course so much I had to do something to pass the time, because I obviously wasn't going to learn geometry. So, but I was a closet writer, Gigi, much like you, and so I took 2 degrees in literature before I realized, wait a second, I can actually come out as a writer to the world, and so that my PhD then was in creative writing. And yeah, it's been a journey since then.
Similar to Tom, I was in year 6 at primary, and had this wonderful teacher. She got the class to do a creative writing exercise. So we all went outside in the front lawn of the school. We looked up at the sky, and we were to write poems about clouds. And everyone was writing about fluffy bunnies and marshmallows and all that fluffy stuff. I wrote about this boy lying in the grass hunting alligators, because I could literally see an alligator floating across the sky. And then she got the class to make paper mache kind of clouds, and we hung them from the ceiling, so it was still a cloud story. But from that age, from when I was 10, I had the confidence to believe that I could do something that was creative. And then it wasn't until stage 1 at university, when we met lots of writers in the studies course I was in, that I could see that I really could do it. And so my poet's license was still valid.
Like my colleagues, I think I've always been a writer and a reader, and I used to fill notebook after notebook with scribbles when I was a kid. But it was at university that I really got taught how to shape those scribblings into something that maybe someone else would actually want to come and listen to or see and hear. And now I mostly actually write about things that I'm angry about, and I can't sort of shout at whatever's going wrong in the world. Patriarchy was not going to listen when I shout, but I can have a character shout about it on stage, and a whole bunch of people will get to hear that. And so it's almost like a voice for the hidden or the forbidden that you're not allowed to express in your everyday life. And so I find it a really great release, and then it's wonderful when other people relate to that unspoken thing, because they can hear the thoughts that are in their head being said out loud on stage as well.
I grew up in a house where reading was highly encouraged, and also an interest in language. So the dictionary was a central part of the house, where we would look up words that we didn't know, or if we disagreed about a word or whatever it might be. So I already had a lot of that. And but I focused it on journalism, print journalism, and I was a print journalist for a while. And I came across a collection of poems. It was an anthology of poems that a flatmate of mine had. And I just sort of fell in love with that book. And I felt like all these poems, though very different, had something in common, and I wanted to know what it was. And I started writing poems. And pretty soon I was writing poems when I should have been at work, and I knew it was time to do something different. So I went back and got my master's, thinking I could always go back to to the career. And but then that led to the PhD, which led to teaching, and just kept writing from there.
Unlike some of my colleagues, when I grew up, we didn't really have any books in the house, sort of just the Bible. So I didn't come from a reading and writing background. I was the first person in my family to go to university. And I think a lot of Massey students are in a similar kind of position. So their struggles were those were my struggles, and I can really relate to them. And it's just such a great joy to see someone who comes with very little experience or knowledge in literature or books or storytelling realize the value of it in real time, right there in front of you, and then go away and be able to profess to others why writing is so important to their own lives. So that's been really, I think that's what I love most about teaching at Massey.
Like Tom, I'm first in my family to get a tertiary qualification, and I know that degrees open doors. I also know that creative writing, especially if you're book published, opens doors too. Surprising the opportunities that you get in life just by having that tag of being an author, and I think that's a wonderful thing. I love opening doors for people and letting them see opportunities that they might not have even thought that they could have. And Massey, because it's got such a strong reputation for Mātauranga Māori. I just, on the way to this interview, I saw some special words, tuia te hā, tuia te kupu. And, the gathering of the life force, it's the hā, and the gathering of words too. Those are strong concepts, and they're just in the air at this university, on this campus.
Well, Elspeth spoke earlier about sort of putting one's anger on the page, and I think it's wonderful to work with students and give them an opportunity to put not only their anger but their voices on the page. And for somebody who I held back so much for so long on putting my voice on the page, and I think it was a shame, and it's just wonderful to see the voices that people put on the page. Why Massey? I mean, partly these people, largely these people, but also I think the diversity of students. Because we have face-to-face and we have distance, we have students from across such a range, and it's just wonderful to be able to work with the work that this huge range of students is producing.
Why teaching and why Massey? So when I was 16, my chemistry teacher got me to tutor someone in the class because he said, "You want to be a teacher?" And I said, "No, that's the worst thing. I never want to be a teacher." So I'd never ever intended to be a teacher. And then as I became a writer, I started to mentor emerging writers, and I found that I really enjoyed it, much to the shock of my 16-year-old self. So yeah, partly it's that I really enjoy it and connecting with people and being able to open doors, open paths for people. A lot of my work deals with finding your voice to tell your own story, about changing narratives, and that's what I can do on a day-to-day level with people if I teach. So yeah, I think it's a little bit of what everyone said here. And yeah, why Massey? Again, it's the people here.
I think we have a really unique program in the Bachelor of Communication where we can bring creative writing to people who might not have thought that they could do it or wanted to do it, or that it might be part of a professional pathway as well. So we teach it across different programs, and that's one place where students can come and combine their creative writing with a little bit of business or journalism. And a lot of our students then go out with a much broader view of their future and a much broader set of options in life. And they're not just going to be a journalist, they're going to be a journalist and a poet. Or they're not just going to be a marketer, they're going to be a marketer and create theatre. And that's really exciting to me, to just see people's options broadening out and people discovering that anybody can be creative and we can teach you that stuff, and it will enhance you both in your spirit and in your professional role.
Over the years, I've had any number of students who came into class thinking they didn't like poetry because they really didn't know what poetry was, or they had an idea of what poetry was. And one of the things I love about teaching is being able to convert them to poetry, to be able to help them to see what poetry can be and that it's not what they think it is. And really that's also true about writing in general, is helping them to unlearn any notions they might have had that are obstacles to them enjoying even the reading of poetry or fiction, and then the writing of it.
I think what students consistently tell me they're really enjoying is some different kinds of learning to break up a lot of focus on language. We do a lot of workshopping. If you're writing a play, then you'll also get the opportunity to work with a group and learn teamwork skills and perform that play and put on productions. So it's something a little bit just different, and You get to invite all your friends and whānau to come and watch you perform. Not everybody has to perform if they don't want to. They can be the back of stage doing the stage management. And those skills feed into all the other kinds of skills that you might need in your future as well.
I really enjoy the workshop process. So getting everyone in the room to contribute to what we're talking about, to other people's work. I think it really helps lift your own work and other people's work when you have to think critically about other people's work. So that's what I really enjoy doing in a workshop situation, where we all have a chance to speak to a work. So we'll be doing that. But I also teach a bit in creative communications, so we do some theatre stuff, which is always great fun. I was talking to Elspeth earlier about it. There's always the students that feel really nervous about doing theatre, and will say that, like, I will not be on stage, but by the end of that paper, you can't get them off the stage because they love it so much. So, yeah, I think you'll get a little bit of everything from me.
I guess I also like to do a little bit of everything. I like to do some careful reading. So, we'll often read published works by other writers. Published work by other writers, because I think there's that thing that everybody says, that writers are thieves. We steal techniques from each other. So it's wonderful to do, to read a piece and to look at what are the techniques that the writer is using here, what are the techniques that I can use. So I like to focus quite a lot on techniques, on the tools, the nuts and bolts of writing, because it feels like once students have that, then they can go off and produce their things, and they can use those tools in the workplace. If you're writing a blog, if writing for Twitter, whatever it is, we use those same tools. So I tend to focus on those. We'll usually do some writing in a class, some workshopping, of course, and then sometimes we have the separate workshop where we're looking at each other's work. Once we've learned some tools with which to look at each other's work.
I learn from my students, maybe they learn something from me, and they learn from each other through the workshop process, and I think that's really exciting, just to see everybody contributing to the learning and everybody coming to life together in the classroom. And I really like the way our students, I feel like, they have complex lives and varied lives, and they need flexibility, and I feel like all the distance offerings that we have really offer that to them. For instance, we have the only purely by distance Master of Creative Writing program in New Zealand, so you can do the entire program by distance. And I think that really meets the needs of our students. So it's great to feel that our students come to us with these complex needs, and we can say, yeah, we can give you that, we can give you what you want.
I think, creative writing, just as a pure kind of art form, it can be life-changing. And so to get that message across to the students, that it's fine to be a bit cosmic in your creativity.
Maybe even required.
Yeah, it is required, really. Those surprising connections that we all make. And this process of doing creative writing actually normalises it. It's okay to be like that. It's not wild and wacky, actually. It's par for the course. And as others have said, things like the whakapapa of creative writing, the traditions that you could be drawing on, and those are diverse traditions. They're not, just singular, because we're living in a diverse world.
Part of what I want to do is what Robert was saying about tradition, is helping students to see the poem they're writing sits within a long line of poems, and that there are things to call upon and things to not necessarily repeat. And so opening up the view more broadly than the poem right before us is one thing I like to do. But the other thing that happens in my class, I think, is opening up to the pleasures of discovery as opposed to intention. It's not that there's never any intention in a creative work, but one of the great joys of writing is discovering something you didn't know you were going to do or even could do. And so I aim for that.
That's one of the things that I really love here. We actually get amazing students, and they inspire me, which Tom was talking about, that exchange. But it came to the top of my mind straight away, a student who graduated from her MCW in playwriting last year and then went on to win the Playmarket Brown Ink Award for Māori and Pacifica playwrights. And so she got a workshop process. She's already done a really innovative art installation of her play in an art gallery in the Hawke's Bay. So it's already got this life beyond the MCW. And then I was also thinking about a PhD creative writing and playwriting student who's just finished, and straight away his international examiner wrote to him and said, this is amazing work that you're doing, and myself and a colleague are writing with Routledge a book about decolonising dramaturgy, and please can you contribute a chapter? And so he sent the abstract, it's been approved, and he's going to be published from his PhD straight away with a top publisher. So we get fantastic students, they do fantastic work, and it's such a thrill to see them spread their wings and fly.
I really enjoy seeing the students come into their own, finding their voice and finding their way in the world. And we've had students that have been shortlisted for the top literary prizes in New Zealand. I've done a little bit just recently, co-written an article with a student, and that was a really amazing experience. So again, there's a student teaching me. And I think that's just wonderful to see them, take that learning and then transform it in the world and go beyond anything that we could have imagined.
We've had many students go on to publish individual works, books, win awards. We've had students go on to be literary editors, any number of things, huge successes. And I think what gives me the greatest pleasure is when I get a note from a student, saying how much they got out of something. I mean, I have one student who wrote and says, a first-year student, distant student, who said, I never would have imagined at the beginning of this course that I would have the confidence to submit a poem to a contest, which she then placed in. Or another person say, I now have it in me to get a PhD and, just as a first-year student, get a PhD and publish a book and become a lecturer in creative writing. I was like, okay. And someone else who said, your course has helped me to see the beauty of everyday things in life, because we were focusing on the ode, and those I think are even greater rewards for students when their confidence grows and they see the possibilities they didn't see before.
Sometimes you're giving students permission to do what they love. And sometimes that's all they need. You just need to say, it's okay. Yep, this is what we do here. We write. So you can just leave those worries and concerns at the door. You don't need them here. And oftentimes that's all it takes. It's a very low threshold sometimes, because people really do want to write. I think many of us want to write. Many of us are closet poets. And so you just give them that permission, and then they just run. And then you stand back and watch and learn.
I also think it's important to have a safe writing space. So the workshop ought to be a safe space for those kinds of writers, because they are writers, and just to recognise that, they can represent too. And that means, offering encouragement first, making sure you offer encouragement. And then you might have a suggestion for a piece of work. And then just make sure that you finish on an encouraging note too. And I think a lot of beginning writers who've been through that kind of gentle process, then they, get their wings to rise and to go forward.
Yeah. It's about connection. It connects us to the world, but also it connects us to our history. It's our whakapapa. Humans are storytellers. It's sort of what differentiates us from other species. They tell stories in their own ways, but we tell stories to each other in languages. So, it's what makes us human. It's so important to understand who we are and how we sit in this world and what we might give to the world as well.
I'll often have a student who writes a first draft of something and says, gee, and then we look at it and think, what are you exploring here? And then they'll say, gee, I didn't know I was interested in that. And the process of writing it and looking, they learn what they're interested in. I find it happens a lot with my own writing too. I write something and then realize, actually, this is what I'm interested in. So as a tool just to help us work out what we are interested in, what we want to explore in life, I think it is a tool of infinite potential in that respect. And then also, I guess on a more prosaic note, it's really good to be able to write. You know, you're going to have to write emails, you're going to have to write all sorts of things, and it's good to be able to write.
I think storytelling is kind of what we all do all day, every day. It's at the center of being human. You know, even how was your day yesterday? And then you tell a story about how your day was. And so when you master something that fundamental to being, to existing, other things come out of that. And I think that's, you know, oftentimes we need to tell stories in order to find out what we need to talk about and what we need to tell a story about. So if you can help someone to do that, that story then is going to lead to another story, which is going to lead to another story, and those stories are going to sort of all kind of come together and just reveal them to themselves. And that's the basis of communication, I think. So I mean, I think storytelling is at the heart of how we interact and how we exist and how we think of ourselves and others.
I think, you know, we also search for newness in writing, and so to have that skill set, to always find the new thing to say, even though these things have been said a lot before in whatever context that we're dealing with.
I don't think there necessarily has to be a utilitarian defense of writing, though there are many. I think that writing just gives a great deal of joy. And sometimes if I look at a sonnet by Shakespeare as an example, I don't teach Shakespeare, but occasionally I'll bring one in. And, you know, it's a little challenging. And I just remind students that Shakespeare wasn't being paid $200 a sonnet. He did it because it was fun. He enjoyed it. And that's part of what we do. It's part of the reason for writing.
We give people permission to enjoy themselves and to explore what's pleasurable to them. And I think that unlocks things for them. Then I think once you do that, your well-being is unlocked, and then you can explore whatever you want.
Kia ora tātou. You know, thank you for listening. I strongly believe creative writing is an emotional art. So only emotion endures. You think of all those great stories from the past. The reason they endure is because of the emotion, the heart, and the...
And just to remember, if you are considering it, that it's our job to make your experience a pleasant, safe, educational, comfortable and creative one, and we take our jobs really quite seriously. And I hope that I'll see some of you on Zoom or in a classroom.
My life has changed from being a creative and having creative writing in my life. And my life would be so much less rich if I hadn't explored this. So I'd encourage you, if you're thinking about it, to come along and discover the amazing world of creativity.
We don't even know yet all the ways in which creative writing is powerful. Instinctively, we know when we craft something a certain way, we can actually create pictures inside someone else's head. We can use words and they will see what we have described, and they can feel a connection of empathy with the character that we've created. It's such an incredibly powerful tool, and we're still learning more and more ways, discovering more ways to use it. So come and be part of that amazing journey of discovery.
Writing has changed my life and enriched my life. And I literally came halfway across the world to teach it. So if you're interested in becoming a writer or growing as a writer, I hope you think of us. I like to think we can help you.
Come to Massey and we'll help you tell your story.